Red Bull have finally revealed their car, and it seems like the off-season wasn't as boring as we would have originally anticipated for the Austrian team. Amid the scandal with Christian Horner and the ongoing investigation, it seems like the car will have a huge burden on its shoulders, carry on the momentum from 2023 and 2022, and make Verstappen a 4-time consecutive world champion. But with the RB20 having some similarities with cars like the W15, could 2024 poised to be a much more challenging season for the Austrian team? And more importantly, have the rest of the grid made big enough of a step to fight for race wins? Ever since the RB20 hit the tarmac in the shakedown in Silverstone, it was obvious that the evolution is going to be visible with the naked eye, as the never-tiring eyes of Pierre Wache and Adrian Newey have worked around the clock to set new standards in the sport for their rivals. For example, the first part that was probably designed by Newey and caught the eyes of experts was the front wing, starting all the way from the nose cone and extending all the way to the level of the leading edge of the front wing. What the team has tried to do with this change is explore as much as they can from the greater lateral surface of the nose cone in order to accentuate the outway of the airflow. When it comes to the aerodynamics of the current era, I guess Red Bull can always find more performance by tweaking some of the most active aerodynamic parts. And the striking look of the front wing shows that there could be an even bigger upgrade in performance from the RB20. But with Mercedes coming in with an iteration of their own regarding the Y-planes of the front wing, one couldn't help but note the aerodynamic war that's silently going on between these two teams headed into the upcoming season. This is just one striking part of Red Bull's new car. And while Verstappen said on his live stream that the car would look exactly the same, he probably meant regarding the livery only. The images that were taken from Silverstone and ones that have been confirmed at the launch from the core of the car seems to be the most striking ones for our eyes. The side pods, although being one of Red Bull's biggest strengths, have seen an evolution in its concept, as they are now closing the inlets to the extreme and disappearing under the large lip, which is placed at the level of the upper edge of the side pod. The profile tapers down in what seems to be a straight line pattern towards the rear, and this is what's most interesting. It makes a strong resemblance to the profile of the second version of the W14. This is just one of the two things that the experts have noticed to be very similar to the B-spec version of the Silver Arrows' 2023 car, with the second one revolving around the profile of the base of the engine cover, which is characterized by two bazookas with a circular section, or what experts like to express themselves, a bulbous design. What is very interesting is that they are strongly inclining downwards to deflect the blowing of the hot air towards the beam wing. And apart from that, the air scope has seemingly gone heavy moderation for the 2024 season too. This is a part that now has a more squared section, while the volume of the engine cover is also heavily wider than its predecessor. But what do all of these changes mean? Obviously, they are an upgrade in the aerodynamic surfaces, meaning that the Austrian team paid a lot of attention to set standards that won't be matched by the rest of the grid. But considering the fact that we saw some of these solutions on cars like the W15 and the MCL38, it's safe to assume that Red Bull might not have the desired advantage which came generally from them inventing solutions and the rest of the grid slowly but surely applying it to their own car, but with their own iterations. However, the changes I just mentioned were a must for the RB20, as they are perceived as a direct consequence of the extreme concept the side pods have, with the inlets positioned high and shielded by the upper lip. Now, in order to create the large channel under the pod so that the car could blow the direct flow to the rear axle, the RB20 has seen a remake of two very important parts that would allow the engineers to achieve this goal: the radiators and coolers. All of these changes come at a very interesting period, because in the past couple of months, Newey's expressed fears of building a car with too conservative a version, and by what we saw with the RB20, it seems like the car is going to be everything but. The engineering masterminds in Red Bull have undoubtedly sacrificed every element to achieve the aerodynamic greatness with the RB20. But whether this is enough for the drivers and the team to not feel distracted from what is currently going on with Horner, time will tell. What the team cannot hope for this time is originality, as they had in the past 2 years, because as Newey expressed, the limit that the current regulation era puts on the teams is inevitably pushing the entire grid towards one scenario: have cars that would look more or less the same, with the only difference being the colour of it. There is no doubt that Red Bull have already made some changes that will raise some eyebrows in the paddock, and their adoption of ideas from teams like Mercedes and McLaren do give us a bit of hope that maybe 2024 won't be as boring as its previous season. But obviously, when a team takes an extreme approach with things, they could turn two ways: extremely good or extremely bad. For Mercedes, it was the second one, but Red Bull would have to see whether or not the following conservative way and opting for something bold was the right thing to do for the upcoming 2 seasons. Let us also remind you that the cars we're going to see for the majority in the 2024 season are going to be more or less the same for the 2025 campaign too, as the main focus would be put on 2026 and the new regulations that will set in place in the sport. According to Newey, the 2024 season will have a lot of similar cars like the RB19, and it's up to them to show that the third evolution of the RB18 is going to be the one to beat. Adding to this matter even further, the mastermind of Red Bull said, "This year, from what I understand, a lot of people, our rivals, have kind of taken a good look this time and have probably come. I expect there will be quite a few cars that look very similar to our car. Our car will be very much a third evolution of the 22 car. So last year's car was an evolution of the 22, in the main points being the normal winter development in terms of aerodynamics, some understanding of what we need to do with the suspension to try to improve the car as well, and getting weight out of it because we never got down to the weight limits in 2022. This year's car is the third evolution of that original RB18. Now, what we don't know, of course, is whether the third evolution is too conservative while others have done something different. You just don't know. It's a difficult one. This is that question of whether we should have a group that goes out and looks at completely left field ideas, or do we keep developing the route we've taken? Furthermore, Newey stressed one very important factor that the media and the fans seem to have related with every team not named Red Bull, but it has seemingly caught up to the Austrian team too: the limitations of resources. The fact that the regulations remain the same and the cars have zero to no wiggle room to change something drastic in order to make a bold leap in the championship goes to show that whoever is first should be caught up quicker than it took for, let's say, Mercedes, for example, back in the turbo hybrid era. The budget cap also plays a huge role in Red Bull's favour, because the rest of the grid cannot spend as much money as they want in order to bring the car in the most preferred operating window. But it seems like teams like McLaren do not need the vast amount of money to threaten Red Bull for wins, as Zach Brown has already sent a fierce warning that the MCL38 won't be on the grid to finish second. They've done that for the majority of the 2023 season. They are here to attack the championship and make sure to give one of their young two drivers a season to remember. Elaborating on this matter further, the boss of McLaren went on to say, "I don't think Red Bull is far away. We've had another good off-season, but you never know what the other 9 teams have done. We certainly have drivers capable of winning races, and we certainly have a team capable of winning races, and the second half of last year we had a race car that was pretty close to winning races. We've built a faster race car in the off-season, so we'll have to wait and see. We don't know what the other teams have done, but winning is certainly our ambition. Second places were great last year, but we've had enough of them to be ready for that top step." All of this prompts worry inside Red Bull's camp, especially if rumours are to be believed regarding Horner's investigation being dragged even after the beginning of the season, and the Verstappen family taking a stance against the team principal and the CEO of Red Bull. With this in mind, do you think that the RB20 will breeze past the grid like they did in 2023? Something that was heavily denied by both Newey and Horner. And if not, which team do you think has the biggest potential to dethrone them? Let us know in the comments below, and once you do that, make sure to click on the video that's appearing on your screen right now.